Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. If you're the kind of person who loves to dig into the hidden wiring of the mind and spirit, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're setting the stage for a deeply introspective psychological journey. We're looking at a very specific astrological and psychological placement, Ketu in the 8th house. Now, in simple terms, Ketu represents what we instinctively detach from, and the 8th house, that's the realm of profound mysteries, secrets, and total transformation. So today, we're going to explore this through 10 distinct manifestations that literally alter how a person interacts with reality.
To really anchor our explainer today, we've got to look at this overarching theme straight from our source material. Detachment from surface reality fuels inner investigation. And honestly, this just brilliantly illustrates the core dynamic we're about to unpack. It is the absolute engine driving the whole shebang. You pull away from the shallow end of the pool, not just to float around, but to dive deep into the uncharted waters of the mind.
So let me ask you a direct question. Do you ever just instinctively sense that people are hiding way more than they're actually showing? Like, when you walk into a room, are you just reading the pleasantries, or are you immediately reading the subtext? Think about it for a second. What exactly are you noticing that everyone else seems to completely miss? Because with this placement, you aren't just casually observing the world, you're scanning it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Phase 1, the silent depth. We're going to look at how this internal wiring profoundly alters your everyday interactions. You know how it is. The surface level of social interaction just completely loses its appeal. You find yourself rapidly losing interest in small talk. The weather, the weekend plans, that polite office chatter, it just feels exhausting, doesn't it? Instead, there's this powerful, almost undeniable inner craving for authentic depth and much deeper truths.
But actually, hold on a second. This is where we really need to look in the mirror. Are you genuinely seeking connection with the person sitting across from you? Or are you just seeking hidden meaning? Take a second with that. Are you actually trying to bond with them, or are you obsessively mining their words to figure out what they aren't saying?
Moving right along to phase 2, piercing the social mask. Because once you stop accepting the surface, you start realizing that almost everything is a performance.
What's really interesting here is that you possess this constant, almost involuntary urge to question the facades people present in public. You look at a perfectly curated life, a flawless presentation, or even just a polite smile, and your immediate instinct is to ask, okay, what lies beneath that? You're basically compelled to dismantle the social mask.
However, this brings up another absolutely vital dichotomy. When you question literally everything, are you finally seeing reality for what it truly is? Or are you simply rejecting anything that feels too simple? Because sometimes, a polite smile really is just a polite smile. We have to ask ourselves if our skepticism is a superpower or if it's just an inability to accept that sometimes things are exactly as simple as they appear.
Because you spend so much of your energy looking right past the mask, you start to develop this incredibly strong intuition about motives and hidden agendas. It's almost psychic. You can walk into a meeting or a party and immediately sense the underlying power dynamics. You know what someone wants long before they actually ask for it. It makes you a brilliant strategist, for sure, but let's be honest, kind of a terrible guest at a superficial cocktail party.
But again, we really need to weigh this carefully. Are your gut instincts genuinely revealing the truth of the situation? Or are those instincts merely feeding a relentless cycle of suspicion? It is incredibly easy for deep intuition to slowly morph into everyday paranoia, where you just start assuming everyone has an agenda even when they totally don't.
So the crucial point is phase 3, the inner investigator. This is where the energy shifts from analyzing the people around you to relentlessly investigating the universe itself.
This psychological dynamic naturally translates into real-world action. You end up becoming highly skilled at research and investigation. You aren't just reading the headlines, right? You're reading the footnotes. You do these massive deep dives into complex, unknown subjects, pulling on every single thread until you can finally see the entire tapestry.
Once again, the source material pushes us to really evaluate our motives here. Are you actually uncovering tangible facts that serve your life? Or are you just chasing endless mysteries? Are you doing productive research? Or are you endlessly chasing ghosts in a labyrinth of your own making, addicted to the hunt rather than the actual truth?
Because, let's face it, mysteries, occult subjects, and life's ultimate secrets, they hold a massive fascination with this placement. So I want you to really ask yourself, what unanswered question keeps pulling you inward? Just let the heavy weight of that unknown sink in for a moment. What is the one riddle you feel you absolutely must solve to finally be at peace?
All right, slowing things down a bit for Phase 4, navigating trust and withdrawal. Let's look at how all this intensity affects your emotional bandwidth.
The world is just loud, isn't it? And constantly reading the subtext of everything is completely exhausting. So a very common manifestation here is experiencing sudden periods of emotional withdrawal. You might be highly engaged one moment and then entirely pull back from the world into a state of total emotional isolation the next. When you do pull back like that, you really have to ask yourself a tough question. Are you truly healing in your solitude, or are you just disconnecting from life? It's a remarkably fine line. Solitude can absolutely be the exact medicine you need to recharge those profound inner depths, but it can also be the ultimate hiding place to avoid the friction of living.
And why exactly do we hide in the first place? Well, usually it's because past experiences have really fueled this deep caution around trust and vulnerability. When you naturally see the hidden agendas and the reality beneath the masks, it means you've likely been hurt by them before. Those previous painful experiences create a deeply rooted, almost instinctual caution whenever you're asked to be truly vulnerable.
So is building this massive emotional wall truly protecting your energy, or has it just become a really convenient, safe excuse to avoid intimacy altogether? Because, let's be real, it is much easier to analyze someone from a distance than it is to let them close enough to analyze you. Let's move on and see how this builds, bringing us to Phase 5, surrendering for spiritual growth. All of this psychological tension is ultimately driving towards one final purpose. You'll very often find that sudden, highly transformative life events happen, and they act as this necessary catalyst that forcefully pushes you inward. The universe has a funny way of shaking your foundation to force profound self-discovery. The surface reality gets completely stripped away, leaving you absolutely no choice but to face what remains in that silent depth. And this, right here, is the absolute existential crossroad. Is this crisis breaking you, or is it actively awakening you? When transformative pain hits, it can completely shatter your foundation. But as the source material strongly implies, the purpose of this intense placement is to ensure that the crisis doesn't just break you down, but actively breaks you open. Because the ultimate resolution to Ketu in the 8th house is exactly this. True spiritual growth comes through letting go of control and certainty. All that intense investigation, all that analyzing of hidden motives, all that trying to figure out the mysteries of the universe, it eventually has to be surrendered. True evolution requires giving up the desperate need to hold all the answers. Which leaves us with one final, profound thought straight from our source. What happens when you finally stop needing all the answers?